again, it's Kat Miller with Blue Iris Learning Center, and today we're going to talk a bit about reflex muscle testing. Not really going to teach you how to do it, but violet and why I wear violet wristbands and some of the history behind the violet wristbands, and a little bit about how I find and define switch words and diffusing words, and how the violet helps to center me so that I can do the defining. Before we get going, how about subscribing and liking our videos so that we know that we are appreciated and we can continue to create more helpful videos for you. Some of you have asked about how I go about defining the switch words and the diffusing words, find them and define them. And part of what I do is using reflex muscle testing to find, yes, this is a switch word or a diffusing word, no, it's not. And then I also do a lot of research on it. And again, I use the reflex muscle testing to help me to make those definitions, because I know that I am getting good information when I do that. Part of what I do as I do this is I wear violet, unbroken violet wristbands around my wrists as I test. These wristbands say, "Together divine be," and so it's all about my relationship with myself and just being in a good place. And I thought that would be kind of fun to put that on the wristbands. When you wear the violet, it needs to be unbroken violet, a solid band of violet. Now, violet is the shortest wavelength in the visible light spectrum, and so it has the highest frequency of any of the colors that we have in the spectrum. Violet is considered the harmony of the universe because it contains both the yin, the blue, and the yang, the red, those energies, and those combine for the ultimate harmony in the universe. And so that's part of why violet. Now, violet is a cleansing, clearing color. It stimulates inspiration, clairvoyance, and is thought to permeate every system in the body and purify. Violet around both wrists, unbroken violet. That means it needs to be a solid color of violet. It's okay if it's just yarn, if it's string, if it's an elastic. The only thing that's important, well, two things: violet and unbroken. Those are the only two important things when it comes to the violet you wear around your wrists. Now, why around both wrists? Because your left is your receiving, your right is your sending. And this is separating your energy from those around you. It also helps to keep you cleansed when it comes to your mind interfering with what it is you're testing. I have found it very important to wear the violet whenever I'm working with somebody. I once had a friend of mine who's an energy worker come to me asking about what to do when she had the energy of her patients overpowering her. She would feel fatigue. She would feel sometimes nauseated. She would just feel drained after seeing some of her patients. I suggested to her that it's wise to wear the unbroken violet around your wrists anytime you're dealing with negative energies, doing healing work, in a hospital, at a discount store, anywhere that you get exposure to negative energies. She did this. She started wearing violet around her wrists, and she told me she was astounded by the difference when it came to wearing the violet versus not wearing the violet. And so I suggest it's a very good idea for any of you that want to separate your energies, that want to keep your energy cleansed, keep your energy up whenever you're dealing with other people, especially ones that are in a very negative state of being. Put some violet on your wrists, both wrists. That's what I do. And that's what I use also for the reflex muscle testing, so that I am separate from what it is I'm testing. I don't know how many times I have had somebody come to me with a word that they wanted to know if it was a switch word. Does this show as a switch word or a diffusing word or anything to define cat? There are many times when I've thought, no, I don't want to define one. It doesn't look like one to me. And then I tested. And I always put on the violet before I test, because it takes my mind out of it. Makes it so that even if I don't want to define it, even if I don't think it is a switch word, it still shows to me that it is a switch word. And that is power, giving you the ability to actually test and see something like that. It's led me very well. I learned to do reflex muscle testing in healing work that I learned back in the early 2000s before I ever found switch words. And I have just expanded my use of the violet into this work as we've come into switch words and diffusing words and numbers and all sorts of things like that I do. I work with the violet. Powerful. Powerful to use that. Try it. See what happens. See how much of a difference it makes when you do that. I also use the violet around my wrists to test on switch phrases. I'm putting together a switch phrase for somebody. Somebody has asked for something, and I'm doing a consultation. If I have the violet on, I feel secure in checking for what switch words to use in this particular situation. And what's really fun about doing that is that I can break down the list, because at this point we have, I think, over 400 switch words, and I think between 1 and 200 diffusing words. Maybe it's more on the diffusing words. And rather than trying to go through the list or trying to remember everything, I know a lot of the switch words by heart, the definitions, what it is that they represent. Same with diffusing words. I know all about that. But if I utilize the reflex muscle testing, I can center quickly and easily and find the words to put together a switch phrase. Because, and we'll have to talk about reflex muscle testing again some other time, but what I do is I set weakness to lead me to what switch word it is that I want next. And if I'm done, if it's a diffusing word, whatever. And I break up the alphabet by the vowels, because that's easy. 5 segments. I can go A, E, I, and if I get a weakness in I, then I know that the switch word I'm currently looking for is somewhere between I and O. It starts with one of those letters. And so I can go I, J, K, L. L. Okay. Now I can go to my Switchwords list, my Defusing words list, whichever it is that it's showing for me, and I can go through and I can find. And if there are a lot, because your S's, your R's, and I think your T's have quite a few switch words on the list, and if there's a lot there, I can test. I can say, is it at the top or at the bottom? Oh, it's at the bottom. And so I look at the list and I start going up from the bottom of the list to see what it is. Right now, I already know that just for this example, love came up. And so I haven't at this point done the muscle testing on it, but I can. Love, love. And I set this kind of reverse from normal on the reflex muscle testing, just because a strong muscle, which means yes, takes very little movement. And a weak muscle, it takes much more movement and therefore longer to do and recover from and go back and do the next. And so what I do is I reverse the logic and I ask the weakness to lead me to what it is I want. That's why when I went A, E, I got the weakness with I. And when I went I, J, K, L, I got the weakness with L, because I am having the weakness lead me in the direction of what it is that I want. And then of course going through the list of switch words and testing until I get the weakness that shows me. And then I'll ask, is it done? And if the phrase isn't done, is it correct so far? Good. And I'll go on until I have a phrase completed. And let me tell you, sometimes I am astounded by the things that come up that I didn't realize would. I have some experiences with defining switch words and diffusing words that blew me away. I had no idea of what kind of definition the switch word would have, or the diffusing word would have, when I started into it. And it was only during research and reading that I discovered exactly why something was a switch word and all of the information about it. So there you have it, a little bit of information about the defining of switch words and diffusing words, how useful the violet wristbands are, and the importance of using them when you're doing reflex muscle testing and when you're working with people, and how important they are to me when I am working with switch words and learning the definitions about the switch words and the diffusing words. Thank you very much for joining us. Please, if you're enjoying this, subscribe, and we'll keep giving you more. We need to know that you are learning from us, that we are giving you a good service here. So subscribe, and we'll see you again on the next one.